Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and today we're going to run the sawmill a little bit. I'm still searching for some good 6x6 beams to make that pergola out of, and we're going to try to get them out of this log from the hollow tree. Should be a lot of fun. So I definitely want to get some log stops put in and set them up high, because this is a big log and I don't have anyone spotting or helping. So definitely want to make sure it can't roll off the mill. I could go ahead and clamp this down and start sawing, but I actually think I'm going to square up the end of the log first. This part here that has the taper on it isn't going to yield me any extra lumber, and squaring it up would take the end of the log off of this bunk and let the rest of the log drop down onto the bunks. Because right now it's only touching the first bunk and the last bunk. So to do that, if I just started cutting right now, I'd be cutting with all this weight on it and it would be in a bind. So I'm going to actually jack this into the log up just an inch or so until this tapered butt end is not touching the bunk, and then I'll make my cut. So I went ahead and got everything locked down. We're on the jack. We're up against the log stops, and I put my 2 log clamps in so that I don't have to worry about this shifting while I'm cutting. Now I'll go grab the saw. So if you guys saw me cut this tree down, or if you didn't, the whole base of it was hollow. Like 3 foot high, I could reach through that tree. And when I started cutting this, I thought, man, that feels hollow. But it sure isn't. It doesn't have any kind of void in it. Basically, I've got high hopes for this being quality wood inside, but it could all be soft and punky. So now I can let the jack down on this end and raise it on the other end. Before I do that, I want to let my log clamps off. One thing that I've been trying to stay conscious of is that raising and lowering that log with these clamps on could be really hard on the clamps. Thought it was going somewhere. Well, I was able to take my jack in and out of this spot when that log was held up. Now there's not room for it to come out. Let's see if we can fix that. Just barely. These are the emergency log lifts. This might give me an angle to show why I wanted to cut that off. I'll put the square on here. You can see, maybe you can't see, but below the square, the log dropped down another 1.5 inches maybe. So if we go to there, and measure up from the bunk height to the pith, we are getting 8 inches. Let's check the other side. That pith is about 7 1/4. So almost not even enough to be worth doing anything about. We've already measured it. I'll raise it just a little bit. I just walked around there and looked, and I'm about 1 inch away from my log stops right now. See if we can get it to roll back into it. Get that emergency log stop up in there a little better. I actually do think those hardwood triangles are kind of handy to have. Ideally, a wedge like that should probably be as wide as the bunk, so I'm not putting an over amount of pressure in one spot on the bunk. All right, let's go ahead and clamp this guy down now. So obviously, you want your log touching at least 2 log stops. We're touching down there. I didn't put the second one in, and then we've got like a 1/2 inch gap right here. Now I could start working on forcing this over, and that would work, but also, the log's not sticking out as far here as it is back there. So I look down at right here. To put this log stop in, the log would need to go in that way just a little bit. Now I think I would rather do that than use this spot, because this is where the bad spot in the tree was. Now another thing while I'm at it is, I don't like having all this rotten stuff on here. This bark and stuff. This softwood, that's what's going to dull your blades the fastest. All right, well, let's see if I can put this log stop in the next spot. And not to sit here and pat myself on the back, but moving that log stop meant the log didn't have to move. And the more you bring it over this way, the more trouble you run into with clearance on the mill head. So I think that was a lot better choice. All I've got to do is lock down the other log stop on this spot and we'll be ready to go. Now, of course, ready to go doesn't actually mean ready to go. It means ready to start checking out the mill head. First thing, I make sure I got water in the coolant tank, and I do. And I shut this completely off last time. So we'll open that up a little bit. Might as well make sure we've got enough fuel in it that it's not going to run out. But this thing really just sips gas. It just doesn't use much. Next, we'll empty the sawdust bucket, but it's already empty. Next thing we want to do is raise the mill head up till it's setting on the cables. Actually, I had to go just a little bit higher because I've got to be able to get the doors open so I can check the blade tension. It feels like you could just tighten the blade up and start the saw, but I don't do that because I think you're running a risk. If you do that, you're running a risk of your tracking being off and throwing the belt when you first start up. Because when you loosen up your tension, you loosen the tension on the blade every time because you don't want it under pressure when you're not using it. Puts flat spots on the belt or the blade. So you loosen it up. Then when you tighten it back up, it can loosen, get off-centered, tighten back down, and then when you spin it, it can throw it. So what I do is open the doors up, make sure it's in the approximate right place. Then I'll put just a little bit of pressure on it. Actually, I'll go ahead and tighten it all the way down. So we go till we hit snug, right there. And then we go half turn, 1, half, 2 and a half. 2.5 turns from snug. Now we're going to roll this by hand and check the tracking. And it's definitely tracking good. What you want to make sure is that your blade has a set in it. So you got one tooth this way, one tooth straight, one tooth this way, and it alternates back and forth. And you want to make sure that the set of your tooth is not up against anything, and you want even amount of overhang on the front and back of the wheel. And we are there. Having the log so close to this hurts visibility for the camera, but the next thing I always do is wiggle the blade up and down. You've got your blade runs through here, and on each side of it in 2 different spots you have your blade guides, and you want just a little bit of vertical play in that blade, but you want to be able to push it and have it touch, so it should be that close. And we're good. So now I'm going to start the engine, and I'm going to let the engine run, or let the blade cycle until I'm seeing the lubricant come out right here. Because sometimes you have to run it for a little while before it starts to lubricate. And I want to make sure it's lubricating when I start into the log. Alright, so we'll put the choke on and turn the key. Choke off, that's all there is to it. Now I'm going to run the blade till I see water right here. There's a hornet or a wasp or something crawling in there. I said, not on my watch, buddy. There's air in the line right here, and that air is not moving, so I'm going to open up the flow. That's pretty much normal in my experience. Is I have to open the water up quite a ways, then it'll start running. Then I have to close it back most of the way. I do that every time. I've stopped the mill head at that end to unload this rather than raising the mill head up over and backing over the top of it. Now, one thing I'm not that great at is judging where to make this first cut, because I thought I was barely skimming off anything. It was fairly level. This would be a small slab I was taking off. Well, it's not. It does have enough taper that this is a fat piece down there that's going to be heavy. And if I had the tractor, I'd pull up right next to it and shove it on there, but the tractor's not operational at the moment. So I'm just going to give this a good hard shove and knock it off on the ground. I don't usually do this, but I'm actually going to splash some water on there just to show how nice that pattern color is. That is gorgeous grain on that wood. If I'm making wide cuts, it's usually only about 2 passes before I have to empty the sawdust bucket. But I'm gonna go ahead and do it real quick. Yeah, this is more than half full. Now we're down here on the small end, seeing what we can get out of this. Now let's say we square it off somewhere around here. And on this side we're squaring it off around here. Okay. So between those spots we have 12 inches, and I'm wanting 4 6x6s. And this way we have 14 inches. It's going to be close to get those, because I'm going to have to cut it here to get my width of 12. Now obviously these will get wider as they go, so let me check the length. So I really only need these to be 12 foot. Which is here, so we do need to get really close to that, even if it does get wider as it goes. So how far down do I have to go to get to 12 inches? We are 12 inches right there. And we've got to come down to here to get 12 inches. And from there, well, and we really only need 11. These are going to be 5.5s. With the saw kerf, we'll bring this up just a little bit. We'll put first one here, and we come down 11 1/8 from there. It's going to be really close to get 4 6x6s out of this, but we're going to give it a try. So we're going to make our first cut right here. Now, some of you are probably already wondering why I'm not just slabbing this whole thing into live edge and trying to make some countertops or market this to a customer that wants to make a finished woodworking product. And the answer is, I want lumber for the projects that I'm already planning. I don't want to make anything live edge right now, so I'm not cutting it. But that doesn't mean that this will go to waste. This is a beautiful piece of wood. This is about 1.25 inches thick, hardwood, beautiful pattern, pretty wide. That end is all 14, 15 inches wide, and it's still a good 10 inches down here. I'll probably list some of this for sale. Now we have a problem. We might have a problem, I don't know yet. I was really believing I was going to get my perfect lumber out of this with no voids. But right here is a wet spot. And why would that be wet? As I push down into it, it feels like just a small cavity that's just right there. And if that was the case, it wouldn't be a problem. But where's the water coming from? Okay, the branches that are cut off here and here don't have a big hole going through them. This branch down here isn't bad. I don't know why we have that spot right there, but we'll find out what we get. Right here is the next potential problem spot that we already knew about. So this right here is fairly solid, but this is still in the sapwood. This is all solid. This is solid. Right here is too soft. And it's probably, so this spot is 19 inches wide, and we're only looking to use 11. So this might not even be a problem, but I'm just keeping an eye out for bad spots that could change what we want to go for in terms of the yield on this. Because I know we've got a bunch of 8-foot 2x6s in here and, you know, all different types of lumber, but do we have 4 6x6 12-foot long? Now, the next challenge is, how do we roll this? It's 12 foot long, about 20 inches this way at the widest part. It's going to be heavy. It's oak. Could I roll it? Probably. Do I want to? No. It's dangerous. It hurt. Besides, like, it could roll off on me. Like, if I tweak my back, I'm out of commission for 3 weeks. So, I think what I'm going to do is pick this log up, carry it out of the Quonset hut, set it down, come around to the other side and pick it up again. Well, I wouldn't even have to do that. I can just set it down, roll it over, and pick it up again. So, let's do that. I was about to set my log clamps and realized my log stops are up too high. If I made my first cut right now, I'd saw my log stops. Alright, we're back to looking at our dimensions here. Now that we know this is our starting point and it's on the bunk, we could actually measure off the scale, but I'm going to look at it with the tape measure, see where we're at. 11 1/4 right here should get us our 6x. So we're going to make one cut at 11 1/4 and see what we got. There he is. This guy's been pestering me long enough. Just a minute ago, I said I didn't want to try to turn this by hand, and I only dropped 100 pounds off of it just now, but now it's flat on two sides and less likely to try to roll on me. I know for sure if this was a foot lower, I would roll it with the cant hook. I think I'll just give it a try. What do you think? Too late to ask, huh? Cant hook gives you a lot of leverage, so it's reasonable. I think I need to pull it out this way before I roll it though, otherwise it can hang up as it rolls. That's close. And really it's a matter of feeling things out, finding out what you can do and what you can't. I think maybe I could have got it, and maybe I couldn't have. I got it up onto my shoulder. Said, do I want to try this? I do not want to try it. Now, if I have two people, I like to hook a strap on this and then lift it with the machine and it'll roll up, but then you need a second person to hold it in place. Since I don't, I guess I'm going to take it all the way off again. It's slower, but it works. Alright, I don't know how solid that is, so I wanted to get a wedge in it before I even go around to the back and see if I have space behind my stops. Okay, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's touching the stops at the top, but not at the bottom. So first I'm going to adjust my stops, then I've got to find a way to work the bottom of this in. So the idea now is that these wedges will keep this from totally falling if I mess this up. I really need an accessory that Woodland Mills offers, which is a cantilever bar. You can bolt a bar onto your tracks here that then you put your cant hook in and let you push from here onto the log. I'm used to having two people when I do this. What I'm dealing with is this little gap right here. I've got some pressure on it from that side pushing in, so I should be able to rotate it from here a little bit and pull the bottom out. Taking a little bark with me. Oh yeah. There she goes. There she goes. Now on that end, I've got my marks for where this 12 by 12 square is going to be on it, and it's at 5.5 and 17.5. See if I mark that here, 5.5, 17.5. That's going to come out too high, and I'm going to get this spot I don't want. So really, we need to level it out. Where I want this end, I want it to start at 4 inches. Basically, when I make my cut in the right space down there, I need it to hit a spot that's full width down here. And that height is 17.5 inches off the beam. So at this point we have two 6x12s, and they need to be cut this direction. So all I've got to do is take the mill head off, then rotate the mill head so that it can slide down and make that oh wait. I'm gonna have to turn these again. Sorry. That's my best attempt at humor for the day. I ought to leave it at home, huh? So if I can flip these over, I got one more cut to make. Those are still incredibly heavy. As I was mentally going through what this process was going to be, I was picturing this step as being victory. If I get to here and I haven't had any holes in the logs or major holes, that's victory. All I got to do is stand them up. But this is going to be harder than I thought. These are super heavy, and if I go too far, it could roll off on top of me. Oh, she doesn't look bad. Ain't she a beaut, Clark? I don't know what the lighting's like out here, and I don't have any water to splash on it, but that is as beautiful as a wood grain gets. It's got all that spalting in it. We got all these black lines running down mixed with the red and the white. Fantastic. I've probably said it about a dozen times, but this is just gorgeous lumber. You got orange, red, yellow, brown, white, just all striped through it. It's phenomenal. I just can't get over how nice this lumber looks. And when I went out to cut this tree down, I looked at it for a long time and I said, man, this thing's too far gone. It's not worth it. I almost just left it and said, I'll let nature take it down. If I had left this, I wouldn't have this beautiful lumber. And I think this is going to have so much character. I will turn these into the post for the pergola, and then I'll put a clear Thompson's water seal on them or something like that to protect. And this is going to be something we should have around for a long time. But I enjoy it and it's rewarding, but milling big logs is a lot of work, and I thought I'd show that in today's video. Anyway, I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.